Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of FPL Fanzone. My name's Nick and in today's episode we are going to have a look at all of the chaos that has happened during the FA Cup in between game weeks 27 and 28 and what that means. We're going to look at some of the transfer options for defenders, midfielders and strikers. Look at assistant manager chip if you've still got it active. I'm not sure many have this week. Captain's choice this week. Is it Salah? Is it Palmer? So we'll have a look at that a bit more in depth as well. Without further ado, let's get started. So we were all hoping that the FA Cup fixtures and results in midweek would have given us a clearer picture of what was going to be happening in game week 34 and potentially game week 33. Unfortunately, it hasn't done that. The fixtures that we've now got coming up in the quarterfinals, Bournemouth, Man City, Brighton, Nottingham Forest, Fulham, Crystal Palace, and then Aston Villa, Preston North End. Only one of those looks like it's an easier one to predict, which is the Villa Preston North End. But outside of that, all of the other games are not massively clear on who we think is going to go through, given current form in that as well. So we did get clarity that Newcastle, Ipswich and Wolves, Leicester will now play in game week 34, as all of those teams are now out of the FA Cup. So we did get another 2 guaranteed fixtures for game week 34. If you want to know a little bit more, I have created a chip strategy guide which talks a little bit more about the permutations and the impacts of this moving forward, but I just wanted to kind of talk through this because obviously the FA Cup also created a huge amount of headaches for our game week 28 teams with suspensions, red cards and injury doubts now across the board. So let's have a quick look at some of those. The midweek fixtures were absolutely brutal for us this week. 700,000 people brought in Matthias Cunha for his amazing run of fixtures of Everton, Southampton, West Ham and Ipswich over the next 4, only for him to lose his head and get sent off in the FA Cup, and now will likely be banned for all 4 of those games. I think I've just seen on the FPL website that another 350,000 people have now transferred him out. We do expect his price to probably drop again shortly. Another one was Lewis Hall. He got injured actually in the Liverpool game last week, didn't play in the FA Cup, but has now been announced by Eddie Howe that he is going to be out for the rest of the season and does require surgery. So Lewis Hall is now out for the rest of the season. And of course Newcastle blank next week in game week 29, but also have the double coming up in 32. So he was in my team, so certainly one to be concerned about. The next up was the horror tackle on Jean-Philippe Mateta. Look, I'm an Arsenal fan, and Lewis Skelly getting sent off for a tap outside of the opponents, and then the Michael Oliver gave the Millwall player a yellow card for a studs in the face challenge, which now Mateta's had to have 25 stitching, is likely to be out for the next couple of weeks. So yeah, that's just my rant over there. But yeah, he's now likely to be out. Obviously, stitches in his face. He's going to need a little bit of time to recover from that as well. He does blank in game week 29, so will likely be back by the Southampton game in game week 30. Next up, Anthony Gordon, another red card in there. So Newcastle are really struggling at the moment with Lewis Hall out for the rest of the season. Anthony Gordon got a straight red, so he will be out for the next 3 games. They are looking at appealing that, so that may change. But yeah, so that means he'll miss the West Ham game, he'll miss the EFL Cup final, and then miss the Brentford game as well. Kaoru Mitoma is now obviously yellow flagged at the moment and is a potential minutes risk for the upcoming games. Now the fixtures aren't amazing for him, but he is still 10% owned, so there's over 1 million players that have Mitoma in their team at the moment. And then of course the other one, which is an injury doubt, is Isak. And Eddie Howe said that there was no injury. The latest update was it wasn't an injury, it's just that he needed a bit of a rest. So again, he could potentially be a minute's risk for the West Ham game, given that they have the Carabao Cup final against Liverpool in game week 29. So just something to consider for those that also have Isak in their teams. So let's take a quick look at some of the defender options for those that are looking to replace Hall. I'd love to say Daniel Munoz is the first option there. but obviously he blanks in game week 29. So for those that aren't free hitting in game week 29, Daniel Munoz is obviously a little bit of a tougher one to bring in unless you've got cover on your bench. Ryan Aït-Nouri, I really do like him for his attacking threat. The fixtures look amazing for Wolves going forward, but with Cunha out of that team, they just feel a little bit weaker at the moment. So I'm just not entirely sure. The fixtures look amazing, so they could easily be. They've got Southampton and Ipswich in the next 4, also Everton and West Ham, which none of them are particularly prolific in front of goal. So therefore there could be some opportunities there for a couple of clean sheets, and he is likely to get attacking returns as well. So certainly quite high up on my list. Ola Aina, I can't afford because I've only got 0.0 million in the bank, but probably not for this week with Man City at home. But then after that, Ipswich away in game week 29 looks like a good fixture. Man United at home, obviously you're not got a great attacking threat at the moment, and then Aston Villa away. So the fixtures are middling for Nottingham Forest going forward, but the Ipswich one in game week 29 does look good. So for those that are looking to maybe to wildcard in either game week 30 or 31, it does make sense if you just want to bring him in for the short term. Next up, I've heard a few people talk about Aaron Wan-Bissaka starting to find his form again in the colours of claret and blue. 4.4 million defender, 5.5% owned, so a real differential. And the fixtures aren't great, but Newcastle at home, given the fact that Isak needs a rest and they've got the cup final coming up, Gordon and Hall are both going to be missing in the next game. There will be a change up in that Newcastle team, so there might be an opportunity there for them to get potentially a clean sheet. Then they've got Everton away, Wolves away, and then Bournemouth at home in the next 4. So overall, not a bad run of fixtures for Aaron Wan-Bissaka. And then if you've got extra funds available, I really like Josko Vardiol in the long term. It does look like with the FA Cup fixtures that they will double in game week 33. But right now, obviously, Forest away this week, the mighty Chris Wood, the highest scoring forward in the game. But outside of that, Brighton away in game week 29, Leicester at home in game week 30, and then Man United away in game week 31. So there's just a couple of options there. For me, if I was to put them in order, for this week, I'd probably just go Ryan Aït-Nouri. If I was free hitting, Daniel Munoz. Otherwise, I'd probably just go Ola Aina from next week moving forward. Moving on to the midfield, and this is a little bit harder at the moment. There's no real standout midfielders outside, of course, Salah. Justin Kluivert, he's already in my team, but he's 30% owned, so like 3.3 million people already have Kluivert in their team. The fixtures for Bournemouth continue to look good. Tottenham away could be a tough fixture, but there's got loads of defensive problems there at Tottenham, so the attacking threat for Bournemouth is good. Just to mention there as well that Evan Nielsen came back in the FA Cup, so Dango is likely to be a bit of a minutes risk now. We're not sure whether Evan Nielsen is going to come back in for the Premier League and Dango is going to just drop to another position. We do think that Kluivert's minutes will be more secured, as will Semenyo's. So Dango is a bit of a doubt now, given that Evan Nielsen is back in the team. Next up is Brian Mbeumo, and again, 40% of the Premier League managers or FPL managers have him already. So that's what, 4.4 million of the 11 million players. Problem is when you look at Brentford, is that their fixtures moving forward are not great. Aston Villa at home, Bournemouth away, Newcastle away, Chelsea at home. It just doesn't look great. Like all of those, yes, they can get attacking returns potentially, but it's just a tough run of fixtures now. If you're certainly someone who likes to prefer and attack the easier fixtures, but again, he's been consistent. He's on penalties, so he can still get returns in each of those games. Next up, Eberechi Eze. He's been back for the last 2 games, like 89 minutes and 90 minutes in the last 2 games. With Mateta out, we'll give him penalties back, most likely. And obviously, he's got Ipswich at home this week. He blanks in game week 29, so obviously you've got to take that into consideration if you are looking to bring him in. But then Southampton away after the blank. So for those that are free hitting, could be an absolutely great opportunity. Obviously, Crystal Palace also double in game week 32 and have a potential to double in game week 33 as well if they beat Fulham in the FA Cup quarter-finals. Next up, Jared Bowen. I brought him in last week. Again, West Ham's fixtures, we talked about them with Aaron Wan-Bissaka, look okay, especially for attacking threat over the next couple of weeks. So yeah, he's 8.1% owned, so still a bit of a differential in team. And then lastly, Yakuba Minter. He's been on my watch list now for a little while. He looks so attacking when he plays. And obviously with Mitoma now yellow flagged at the moment, still likely to play, but yellow flagged, he could be a great option going forward. Again, fixtures aren't amazing if you are someone who likes to attack fixtures. He is only 5 million, so he is that sort of enabler in your midfield, your rotation of your 7th or 8th attacker on that as well. But certainly one I'm keeping an eye on. But let me know in the comments below, is there anyone that I'm missing? You know, I'm really struggled with the midfield this week on terms of key players. Let me know in the comments below who you're looking at bringing in. The real headache for me, of course, is the forwards, with Cunha now being suspended for the next 4 games. That's caused me a real headache because obviously Ollie Watkins in my team is blanking next week as well. So I've now got 2 forwards out for next week. So looking at the options here, Chris Wood is the obvious choice. Maybe not this week with Man City at home. But again, Man City's defence hasn't been amazing in the last couple of weeks. And Chris Wood just seems to be consistent week in, week out, getting returns. As I said, highest scoring forward in the game at the moment. Ipswich away in game week 29. So yeah, a good fixture in the blank. It probably most likely was going to be my replacement for Watkins next week. But obviously I now need to make that consideration with what to do with Cunha as well. Alexander Isak, it's just a minute's risk at the moment. Obviously missed the Liverpool game, came back, played last weekend, played in the FA Cup, but came off after about 75-80 minutes. A lot of people were saying that he was hobbling. There has been an update from Eddie Howe that says it's not an injury, it's probably just fatigue. But given that they've got the cup final the week after, do they risk it? Do they risk their talisman, their striker, against West Ham away? Maybe just because they've got a few other injuries and suspensions across the team, but certainly one to look at. The fixtures look amazing despite the blank. So West Ham away, Brentford at home, Leicester away in the next 4 with the blank in the middle. We talked about Brentford's fixtures already. Johan Wissa, again, is at that 6.4 million range is a nice price point, but the fixtures just don't look great at the moment moving forward. Erling Haaland is a tougher one for me. Originally, I did consider selling Palmer down to someone like a Minter and then moving Watkins up to a Haaland for game week 29. But by doing that means I've just got no way of getting to Alexander Isak. But then on the same basis, I am potentially looking at wildcarding in game week 31. So I could just bring Isak back in on the week wild card and then not have to worry about it as well. So he is a good short-term option. Obviously, Nottingham Forest have had a really good defence this season. I think 4th best defence in according to the underlying numbers. But then obviously they've got Brighton at home, Leicester at home, and Man United away in the 3 games after that as well. So Erling Haaland, I just don't know if he's worth 14.7 million. You know, he's not getting the same returns as a Salah. He is scoring consistently recently. He is getting returns each week, but not 14.7 million returns. You know, you could almost buy, Chris Wood and anyone else on this page for the same price as Erling Haaland. And between them, they'd probably cover his... So it's a tough one for me. Still, I will think about it a little bit more and discuss him more in next game week, as people will start to look to transition towards Man City players. And then the last 2 here are just real enablers. Strand Larsen is the obvious choice for Cunha, just because obviously Cunha is going to be out for the next 4 weeks. The fixtures are amazing for Wolves, as we've already talked about. So he will be the man up front. And he did it earlier in the season when Cunha was out as well. So there is a chance that he could start to get a few returns, but the team just does look a little bit weaker without Cunha in it. And then lastly, Beto. Next two fixtures look great. He's on a good run of form at the moment, and then after that, Everton's fixtures get significantly worse. Liverpool and Arsenal, and then I think Newcastle and Chelsea following that as well. So he would very much be a very short-term play if you were looking to bring him in. Just obviously, Everton aren't known for their attacking prowess on that as well. So for me, Chris Wood number one. Alexander Isak number two, just because he's got the blank next week and there is a slight doubt for minutes this week. Outside of that, all of the others feel like a bit more of a punt, unless of course you've got 14.7 million sitting in the bank and therefore you can get Erling Haaland. So it would be remiss of me to not bring up that obviously 4 teams do blank in game week 29. So do consider that when making any transfers. Liverpool, Crystal Palace, Newcastle and Aston Villa will not play in game week 29. So I've got 2 Liverpool, 1 Newcastle, 1 Villa at the moment. So I've got 4 players that are not playing in game week 29 at the moment. So my transfers will certainly look at moving some of those out. Hall being one of them now that he's out for the rest of the season, and Watkins potentially being the other one just because the fixtures don't look amazing going forward. Although he will potentially now double in game week 33 after Southampton away in game week 32. So could be a little bit better looking at maybe potentially keeping Watkins for that as well. So just take that in consideration when you're making your transfers for this week. How are you going to manage game week 29? Are you free hitting or are you going to try and manage with transfers? There's a lot of engaged managers and content creators talking about the ability to take maybe -4, -8, even a -12 to make sure you've got a full team for game week 29. Personally, obviously, I've planned a little bit further ahead than that. So I was looking at not taking any hits. I might need to take a -4 now with Cunha being out as well, because that now makes 5 players in my team that are blanking for next week. So next up, I can do a quick section on the assistant manager options for this week. I don't know how many people still have their assistant manager chip active, or I know it's something that I'll talk about a little bit in my chip strategy video, but let me know in the comments below, is this something that you are still interested in? Should I keep this in every week for those that are still watching? And also, if you've got this far in, hit that like button for me. Hit subscribe if you're new around here. It really does help the channel. And then obviously that notification bell if you want updates on fixture changes or injuries to key players. There'll be videos coming out multiple times each week. So thank you very much for watching. Hit that like button. Let's get on with the assistant manager section. Assistant managers, there are 6 managers with table bonus options this week. Ipswich, Southampton, Leicester, West Ham, Man United and Spurs. For me, the real value for the assistant manager chip is the table bonus. I did a little bit of analysis on it earlier on after using it for between game weeks 24 and 26 for me. And the real value does come from the table bonus there as well. So my top 3 for this week would be Graham Potter, just because Newcastle have injuries. They've got the cup final to think about, so they may rest Isak as well. West Ham just beaten Arsenal. They've beaten Chelsea recently as well. So they're on a good run of form. They're starting to get a little bit of a momentum there as well. So he's the most likely in my mind to get that sort of table bonus because Newcastle have just been in a terrible run of form. Losing games, a lot of games, and conceding goals recently. So next up, Ange Postecoglou. But actually, I just watched, I've just seen the result of the European game, and I think they didn't have a single shot on target in the 90 minutes. So I might take him out here as my second option. They are playing Bournemouth, who obviously are in a good run of form at the moment. So I just don't know there. There obviously is a chance. And again, you could potentially put Amorim in there against Arsenal. But then Arsenal won 7-1 in midweek. So that doesn't feel like an option as well. If you want to go the safe option, you're looking for sort of 8 to 10 points. Slot makes a lot of sense against Southampton this week. They've just been terrible. But also just a consideration that Liverpool do have the Carabao Cup final the following week, and then obviously they've got Champions League second leg as well, so they may rest a few players in that game, so it might be a little less cohesive, a little more disjointed for that Liverpool team, but they would be my top three for this week. Once again, let me know in the comments below, is this still valuable for you guys in terms of the assistant manager chip? Is it something I should continue in future videos? Okay, so last week's talking point for who was captain, Salah or Palmer. There was 3 points difference between them, despite the fact that Salah had the more significantly difficult game playing Newcastle, whereas Cole Palmer was playing Southampton. Cole Palmer blanked, but Chelsea's won 4-0. Realistically, for me, there's no choice here to be made. Salah is in much better form. Liverpool are in a significantly better form. Southampton are appalling at the moment, are conceding goals left, right and centre, 18 goals over the last 6. Cole Palmer is out of form. He is definitely cold Palmer right now. Chelsea are hit and miss. Yes, they'd lost their 2 games before playing Southampton at home. Yes, they do have Leicester at home this week, who are also in a terrible run of form at the moment, but have only conceded 15 goals in the same period that Southampton have conceded 8. There's nothing really that says to me that we shouldn't go with Mohamed Salah. It sounds boring. It sounds safe. The only potential risk, if you want to go as a differential, is that Salah may be rested. Salah may get 60 minutes against Southampton and then come off because he's got the Champions League midweek and then the cup final the following weekend. So they may want to rest him a little bit, but they've not rested him anywhere else. So that's just, a thought process that he could potentially be rested this week. And that's the only reason. If there was early announcements that he was going to be benched, you would then look to switch to Cole Palmer. But for me, it takes a brave man again to pick Cole Palmer over Mohamed Salah. Last week was a little bit harder because obviously the fixtures were different. But with Salah having Southampton at home this week, I could also potentially, for those that are looking at it and still have it, is the triple captain. The only reason I'm doubting the triple captain is there is a chance that he maybe plays 65, 70 minutes and not the full 90. But he could also easily score 3 goals in a half against a team that's just conceding as badly as they are at the moment. So for me, it's a no-brainer, Mo Salah. But of course, I do understand if people want to go with Cole Palmer, he's got to be due a return soon. And Leicester at home is just as good as any of a fixture. So let's take a quick look at my team then leading into Gameweek 28. And overall, I'm not in a bad position. I'm not, my overall rank, I'm not particularly happy with at 1.2 million. I obviously dropping 300k in the last 2 weeks. I'd just broken into the top million in Gameweek 26, I think. And now with Cunha and Hall out, Cunha for 4 weeks, Hall for the rest of the season, it obviously just gives me a bit more of a headache looking forward. The team playing as it stands is I've got Pickford in goal against Wolves away. Originally I was going to have Flecken, but with Cunha being out, I don't have that conflict because Flecken was playing against Watkins. In defence, I've got Kirkes with Tottenham away. I've got Gabriel with Man United away, and then Trent Alexander-Arnold with Southampton at home, a great fixture for them. I've got Palmer, Leicester at home, great fixture there as my vice-captain. I've got Kluivert with Tottenham away. Salah, Southampton at home as my captain. Umbremo with Aston Villa at home. Bowen with Newcastle at home, and obviously we just talked a little bit about Newcastle's troubles over the last week. Raul Jimenez with Brighton away, and then Watkins with Brentford away. So overall, middling fixtures for most of those teams. Obviously the Liverpool and Chelsea fixtures are good. Outside of that, I'm not expecting a massive swings either way this week. So yeah, I'm just hoping for a small green arrow to start getting me back onto that top million piece, so I can finish strong with the last 10 games of the season. I know we've been covering this over the last couple of weeks, and I've been planning towards my game week 29 with the Cunha red card. It now means I've got 5 players that are going to be blanking in game week 29, and I've only got 2 free transfers. So my gut feel at the moment would be to move either Watkins to someone like Chris Wood, because Cunha don't have the budget available, and then move Hall to someone like Aina, so they'll both have Ipswich away in game week 29. I can field an 11. I'll have 3 players that blank on my bench, so that would be fine to just get through that. Most of them will have good fixtures again in game week 30, and then I'll just wildcard in 31. So I can manage it with the 2 free transfers. I could potentially look at doing a -4 and then bringing in 2 attackers instead of playing a 4-4-2. But overall, I should be able to manage game week 29 without too much damage. Thanks again for watching FPL Fanzone. If you have got this far to the video, please do hit that like button, hit subscribe if you're new around here. Leave a comment to let me know how you're doing and how you're looking to plan, if there's any transfers you're bringing in this week, and hit that notification bell if you want updates on any fixture changes, price changes, or future videos coming out on the YouTube channel. Once again, thanks for watching, and may all your arrows be green.